Hi everybody. One of the most important qualities to cultivate as we're improving our sense making is a concept called sovereignty. So we've developed a sovereignty meditation specifically for this course and are going to model it and explain it in a bit more detail in this film. Before we do that, it's quite important to just define briefly what we mean when we say sovereignty. So another way to talk about sovereignty is to talk about centeredness. How connected and centered in myself do I feel as I'm moving through the world, or as I'm taking in information or communicating with someone else. And we talk about what happens when we come out of our sovereignty. And another way to say that is how do we get knocked out of our center, where we're not necessarily aware of ourselves or aware of our own perception, but we're responding to the world. So this meditation, the sovereignty meditation, is something we encourage you to do throughout the course in your own time. So you might like to do it in the morning, you might like to do it at lunch or later in the evening. Everyone has a different lifestyle. And it's also something we encourage you to do together as a pod. So another way to think about sovereignty is to connect to a sense of internal awakeness and dignity. And even our posture as we prepare to meditate represents that. It can really help to sit like a king or a queen on your throne. So your back is straight, your shoulders are relaxed, not slouched, and your head is facing forward. And even when we sit in this posture, there's a certain alertness to the world around us and a certain alertness to everything that's happening within us as well. As there's stimulus in my environment and there's sensations, thoughts, feelings, physical sensations in my own body, I can observe these when I'm in my sovereignty. I can observe these and choose how I respond to them. When I'm out of my sovereignty, usually they are buffeting me around and I'm sort of reacting to the world. And in the study of mindfulness, this is a psychological trait called decentering. So decentering is our ability to take a step back from our experience and have a bit of a gap between stimulus and response. So another facet of mindfulness is non-judge. So our ability to observe reality and observe ourselves without judging it as either good or bad or putting some kind of value towards it. So those are both qualities that this meditation helps us develop. Decentering, so taking that step back, and then also not judging. So being able to just observe whatever is, whether it's outside of us or inside of us, without deciding it is either good or bad. And so those are two things to remember throughout this meditation. So we're providing an audio that will be a guide through the meditation, and you can use that the first few times you do it to get used to it. This video is about explaining in a little bit more detail each of the stages and why we've included those stages. So the sovereignty meditation has 4 stages. The first one is breath. The second one is concentration. It's a kind of concentration meditation. The third stage is mindfulness, which is a different type of meditation. And then the 4th stage is some kind of inquiry, which you might do in your pod, or you might do face-to-face with someone, or you might just do by yourself, for example, through journaling. So stage 1 is 3 rounds of pranayama breathing, which is a kind of breath work, and it's a sort of energy booster. So the pranayama breathing is quite simple. We're going to take deep, continuous breaths, and in the guided audio version of this, you'll have a timer to be able to track the breaths. And the way it looks is, again, breathing really deep into the belly, getting a really full breath, and the breaths are deep and continuous. So then we exhale, have a bit of a break for a moment, return to regular breathing for a few moments, really taking a moment to feel grounded in the body, and then we do another round. And we do 3 of those, and then we move on to stage 2. So stage 2 is concentration. Concentration is really key for developing our ability to not become distracted, which is key for our sovereignty, so that we can stay centered and connected to ourselves. And the concentration is useful to think of as a zooming in. We're zooming into ourselves, and very simply, we're just focusing on one point. And so with this, we'll focus again on the breath. And rather than breathing very fast, just usually useful to close your eyes and just being aware of your breath. And this lasts 5 minutes. Key things to remember with the concentration is that there's one point of focus. So it might be that there's noises in the room around you. It might be that your stomach is grumbling because you're hungry. You might have a sensation somewhere in your body. Just allowing all of that to be as it is, but keeping your point of salience and your point of focus just on the breath. So you're aware of your breath in, you're aware of your breath out. Anytime you become distracted, which is really normal, you just come back to that singular point of focus. So whereas in stage 2, we were zooming in and focusing on one thing, this mindfulness stage is all about zooming out and bringing that level of focus to our environment and to anything we're perceiving in ourselves. So the key thing to remember in this stage is that it's really a process of waking up to our senses, being really curious and awake to whatever is going on, but really using that skill of non-judge, so not judging, whether it's a sound or a thought coming and going, and also decentering. We're always taking a step back. We're really zooming out and becoming aware of what's happening without getting caught up in it. So that metaphor of being a king or a queen on your throne is really apt. It's a sense of observing almost all the subjects in your kingdom, which is your lived experience, listening to everything, completely taking everything in. I think John Kabat-Zinn, who's a very famous mindfulness researcher and instructor, he calls it laying out the welcome mat. Just laying out the mat and just being welcome and curious about everything that's coming into our awareness. So stage 4 is inquiry. Now, if we're doing this with our pods, this will be a live inquiry, which we've modeled in another film, where we really become curious and start waking up to our lived experience in the moment, and also where that leads us in our sense making by talking. So a kind of talking inquiry. Now, if you're doing this as your practice by yourself, then it's equally effective to have an inquiry with yourself. And the way we suggest for that is journaling. So we'll have something written up about best practice with journaling, but very simply taking 5 or 10 minutes to sit and start writing, kind of allowing a kind of stream of consciousness to come around what's going on, what's happening right now, what's on your mind, and allowing that to become a thread that takes you maybe somewhere you might not expect and helps in your sense making. So when we put it all together, the entire sovereignty meditation looks something like this. So we start with stage 1, which is the breathing. 30 of those, then we take a break, come into normal breath for a little bit, and then we do another round. 30 of those. And then we go into the final round. And to divide the stages, just so that psychologically we feel we're moving into something that's different, we just have a very simple stretch. So stretch your arms out to the side, and then up top, stretching forward, then stretching back. And then once we've done that, sit in a dignified, upright posture. And stage 2 is really zooming in. It's concentration. And so we're just becoming aware of our breath. So there might be a lot of other things going on in your environment as you're doing this, but the practice here for these 5 minutes is just continuously to come back to a single point of focus, which is your breath. So you're really honing your ability to zoom in and focus and concentrate. So then stage 3 is mindfulness. And it's again useful to divide the stages. So to divide these 2 stages, just bring your hands up to your face and allow your fingers to spread apart a little bit. And then opening your eyes and just taking a moment to observe wherever you're sitting doing this meditation. So taking a moment to observe the room, taking a moment also to connect to your own body just by looking at it, and then closing your eyes. And this stage is all about zooming out. So really waking up to your senses and becoming aware of, for example, the sounds in your environment, your emotional state, thoughts as they're coming and going, any physical sensations. And this will be guided in the audio as well to help you practice it. So we do 5 minutes of that stage. And then at the end of those 5 minutes, we just end this part of the meditation by taking 3 deep breaths and really letting the out breath just fall out of the body, all the effort on the in breath. And then if you're with your pod, this is when we would start to inquire. There's the other option is that you might just be doing this by yourself, and this is the opportunity to journal, to just start writing and start really inquiring through language as to whatever is alive for you in the moment, whatever it is, whatever question you'd like to inquire into, and using the combination of the concentration, the mindfulness, and also the nervous system regulation we get with the breath to put us into the right space for that inquiry. So this is a practice that we encourage you to do every day if you can, and to also do before you do your weekly pod inquiries, just to put yourself in the right space and to just start becoming aware of your own connection to yourself, your own sovereignty, and also your own level of awareness to your environment and yourself.